haunted by sinister secrets. Twin sisters, one cursed husband, and only one child survived 1839. The chill of the evening wrapped around Clara like a heavy cloak, thick with dread. The shadows crept like whispered secrets through the creaky farmhouse, and she could feel the weight of something dark looming just beyond the flickering candlelight. Her heart pounded like a thunderstorm as she returned from the mill, exhausted from a long night's toil. And yet, dread was a familiar companion. It nestled in her bones. The townsfolk's words haunted her. Ever since the whispers had begun about Jacob, her husband, and the ominous stories surrounding him. Jacob had been a beacon of respect, but now, paraded like a grim spectacle. When she returned home, she stopped cold at the sight of Lydia's message pinned to the door. "You must beware of Nathaniel." Those words twisted in her stomach like a snake, spawn of her worst fears. Nathaniel, their neighbor, smiled too much, seemed too eager to lend a hand. Clara had brushed it off, but no more. She stepped inside the dim hall, the air thick with unseen weight. The silence felt predatory, each tick of the clock echoing like an ominous heartbeat. She moved toward Eliza's room. Memories of prior nights swirled, her daughter's frightened voice echoing in Clara's ears. "Mommy, it's coming for me," echoed through the marrow of her bone. Those words filled her with a deepening panic, fueled by the dread growing in her heart. Eliza had been becoming increasingly fragile, each day a little worse. There were strange accidents. Toys breaking, sudden fevers, whispers in the dark. Shadows danced behind her in the corners of her mind as if they were living entities. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Clara burst into Eliza's room, heart racing. The flicker of the candle illuminated her daughter's face, a mask of terror. "Mommy, it's here." Eliza's finger trembled, pointing towards the window. Clara's blood ran cold as a shadow flitted across the glass. The thought of Nathaniel invaded her mind like a dark fog. Was he the collector of darkness? She felt the chill wrap tighter around her heart as the floor creaked behind her, a sound drenched in dread. As Clara whipped around, the silhouette of Nathaniel filled the doorway, tall and ominous. An uninvited specter with a glint in his eye that sent her pulse soaring. The air grew thick and suffocating. "Evening, Clara." His voice dripped like honey poisoned with malice. Instinct kicked in. Clara pulled Eliza close, her body trembling, rage and fear rattling through her being. She'd have to act, to flee. Yet, as the shadow loomed, she knew they were trapped. Trust had shattered. The darkness pressed against her, collecting secrets that might consume them whole. Outside, the night whispered of horrors untold, and Clara understood with chilling clarity. Time was running out. Behind Nathaniel, the world blurred. All that remained was the crushing certainty that the light was fading fast, leaving only questions that scraped at her sanity. What was truly waiting to claim them? Clara's breath came in shallow gasps as she tightened her grip around Eliza, squeezing her daughter like a shield. Nathaniel's smile transformed into a cold, calculating grin. "I've come to offer my help," he said, each word laced with a venomous sweetness. His presence filled the small room like bitter smoke, suffocating and oppressive. Clara's mind raced. Was he mocking her? Did he know what was happening to Eliza? "Is that so?" Clara managed to choke out, her voice barely above a whisper. She forced herself to meet Nathaniel's gaze, searching for a shred of humanity. But all she found was a hungry glint that twisted her stomach with dread. Eliza whimpered quietly beside her, and Clara could feel the heat radiating from her child's small body, fever-bright against the creeping fear. "Mommy, please don't let him stay." The frail voice broke Clara's resolve. With a sudden anger surging through her, Clara stepped forward. "You must leave Nathaniel." she shouted, more bravado than she felt. Now, Nathaniel's expression shifted, and the honeyed voice darkened. But Clara, your daughter and I have some unfinished business. You wouldn't want to be a hindrance, would you? The corners of his mouth twisted as if the mere thought was amusing. Time slowed. The air thickened with malice and tension. Clara's spine prickled with the sense of impending doom. She glanced toward the window escape. What if she could make a run for it? Before she could act, he stepped closer, invading their space. The shadows of the room lengthened, giving him an otherworldly quality, like he was drawing the darkness toward him. You don't understand. I'm here to protect you, to protect Eliza. Protect? Clara spat, outrage fueling her voice. You're the one who threatens us. She felt a wildness in her heart, a spark of rebellion. Laughter erupted from Nathaniel, the sound sharp and chilling, echoing off the walls. Oh, Clara, the danger is far from what you see. He scanned the room, eyes glinting with an unnerving glee, then shifted his focus back to Eliza. Imagine the joy she could have if she only accepted my offer. Clara felt her blood run cold. She turned to Eliza, who was trembling against her, eyes wide with fear. You stay away from her, Clara shouted, every ounce of a mother's instinct screaming at her to protect her child. And then, the air turned electric. All at once, the atmosphere shifted. The wind outside howled, rattling the windows. The candle flickered violently, casting grotesque shadows along the walls. Nathaniel seemed to revel in the chaos, his eyes alight with a sinister thrill. Very well, we'll play this game, he sneered, before stepping back, leaving the doorway clear. But remember, Clara, some doors once opened can never be closed again. As his figure faded into the gloom, Clara's heart raced with both relief and dread. She knew he wouldn't stay away long, and every instinct warned that the true horror lay ahead. Is he really gone, Mommy? Eliza's voice was barely audible, full of uncertainty. Yes, my love, he is gone, Clara assured, though she felt a chill deep within her. The weight of Nathaniel's threat loomed, hanging in the air like a noose ready to drop. But as she glanced around the room, the shadows didn't seem to retreat. They lingered, pressing closer, a haunting reminder of the evil that sought to encircle them. Clara's thoughts raced. Was Nathaniel truly an enemy, or had he come carrying something darker, more terrible than even she could imagine? Suddenly, a low whisper echoed around the room, one Clara could not ignore. Find me, it beckoned, pulling at her mind with a mesmerizing pull. Mommy, did you hear that? Eliza's eyes widened, fear painting her tiny face. Clara's heart thundered. She stepped back, panic rising as she fought to push the ominous words from her mind. Could she trust herself to unravel the truth? Or was their fate already sealed? She could feel a new dread settling in her heart, deeper than before, pushing against the very fabric of her being. What had Nathaniel truly unleashed? The candle flickered ominously, shadows dancing along the walls as Clara's mind spun with unanswerable questions. As she glanced back at her daughter, she knew one thing for certain. Whatever was coming next would reshape their reality forever. Stay close, Eliza, she breathed, a warning and a promise etched in her voice, as the night outside grew darker and more dangerous. The walls seemed to close in on Clara as she clutched Eliza tighter. The whisper echoed again. Find me, it slithered through the air like smoke, wrapping around her mind, smothering reason. Her body tensed. Mommy, I'm scared, Eliza whimpered. Her small hands gripped Clara's shirt with desperate urgency, her eyes darting to the dark corners of the room. Stay quiet, sweetie, Clara murmured, forcing calmness into her voice despite the terror churning inside. The last flicker of light from the candle cast wavering shapes on the walls, a grotesque dance that seemed alive. Please, Mommy, let us leave, Eliza begged, her voice trembling. Clara's heart ached. How could she explain? The night was treacherous. Nathaniel was gone, but his words lingered, an awful promise of a return. She needed to think, to find a way out without endangering Eliza. We can't go out there, not now. Suddenly, footsteps echoed outside, heavy and rhythmic. Clara froze, all thoughts of escape shattered. Was Nathaniel back? She strained to listen as the sound neared, heart pounding in her chest. The door creaked slowly, the handle turning with an ominous click. Clara's breath hitched as she instinctively shielded Eliza behind her. The door opened a crack, revealing only darkness beyond. A shadow loomed, blurred but menacing. "Mommy," Eliza whimpered. "Stay behind me," Clara whispered fiercely, ready to confront whatever was on the other side. Fear surged through her, an electric charge in the air. She gritted her teeth, fingers curling into a fist. The shadow stepped into the faint light of the room. To Clara's relief, it was only the neighbor, Mr. Gibson, his face pale and lined with worry. But his expression quickly shifted to something darker as he caught sight of the room eyes flickering over the flickering candle before resting on Clara. "I heard screams," he began, voice shaking. "What has happened?" "Stay away," Clara snapped without thinking. She didn't want to let anyone else in, to expose her daughter to the chaos outside. The shadows had teeth. "I know, don't." His words sliced through the tension as he suddenly recoiled, eyes widening in horror. The frantic breath from Eliza pierced the silence, and Mr. Gibson's gaze flicked behind Clara, confusion and fear mingling as he struggled to articulate his thoughts. Is he here?" His voice dropped to a whisper, laden with dread. Understanding crumbled in Clara's chest. "You know about him?" she gasped, heart racing. "The air feels wrong," Mr. Gibson murmured, stepping back a fraction, almost as if trying to distance himself from the invisible threat. "He is not just a man, Clara. He brings shadows, darkness. The kind that takes everything." Painfully aware of the tight grip Eliza had on her, Clara swallowed hard, grappling with the shocking implications. "What do you know?" she pressed, frustration blurring her fear. Before he could respond, the windows rattled again, the dark night outside flaring with a sudden gust of wind. Clara felt the room shudder. The shadows danced more frantically now, creeping closer. Mr. Gibson's eyes darted nervously. "You need to." The door slammed shut. The sound thundered like a gunshot, drowning out Mr. Gibson's voice. Clara turned, terror flooding her veins. "We need to go." But panic took hold. She felt the whisper beginning again, louder this time. "Find me." It became an urgent chant, sinking into her bones, echoing in her mind. "Mommy!" Eliza screamed, eyes wide, panic shimmering with the candle's flicker. Clara tried to push through the growing fear, the encroaching shadows feeling like a tangible entity now. Was Nathaniel behind this? "We have to find out what he wants," she urged herself, willing her feet to move toward the door now solidly shut. But as she rushed to turn the handle, a cold hand gripped her wrist. "No," Mr. Gibson hissed, his eyes wild. "We can't." Before he could finish, the candle flickered violently, darkness swallowing them all. Clara's breath became ragged as she realized the room was changing, the walls pulsing and shifting, as if alive, as if longing for something. "What is happening?" Eliza cried, voice straining against the growing terror. "Find me." The whisper droned on, a chilling promise of what was to come, and Clara knew with sickening clarity. Whatever Nathaniel wanted, they were being pulled into it, deeper into the unknown. Clara pulled Eliza closer. "I won't let him take you," she breathed, her voice a fierce vow against the abyss. But with the walls closing in and shadows thickening, could she keep that promise? The door shuddered, threatening to break free. And then, as she turned to face the dark, she felt the chill settle in her chest, a sinister certainty that the night was just beginning. What if he is inside? She whispered to herself, dread mounting as she braced for the inevitable storm. Outside, the wind howled like a warning. Time stood still, and the night held its breath waiting. Clara's heart thundered as the darkness thickened around them, a living entity closing in with hungry, unseen eyes. Eliza clutched at her, knuckles white, her small body trembling against Clara's hip. The candle sputtered, its flickering light a pitiful defense against the creeping gloom that seemed to whisper secrets from the walls. "Mommy!" Eliza's voice was barely a whisper, edged with the rawness of fear, a sound that settled deep within Clara like a cold stone. "We'll be okay," Clara said, though the words barely left her mouth before she doubted them. "Stay close to me." In that moment, she was nothing but a mother, not a protector or a warrior, only a woman willing to do anything to shield her child from the horrors that lurked ever nearer. Each heartbeat echoed in her ears, a countdown to something inevitable. The shadows pulsed like a heartbeat, a rhythmic thumping that synchronized with the whispers, melding into a cacophony of pleas and threats. Find me, the words slithered through the air, a siren call that beckoned Clara to stray into the abyss. "Mommy, I don't want to play," Eliza whimpered, confusion bursting through her fear. At the tender age of 5, her understanding was limited, innocence a fragile shield against the night's terror. Clara knelt to meet her daughter's fearful gaze. "This isn't a game, baby. We have to be brave." She forced a smile, though it felt brittle. The darkness devoured everything, even hope. The door behind them rattled, splintering the tension like a lightning strike. Clara's breath caught in her throat as Mr. Gibson pressed against it from the other side. Desperation etched on his face. "Clara, it's not safe. You need—" He was cut off as the shadows loomed, dark tendrils creeping toward him. With a guttural roar, the door bucked violently, forcing Mr. Gibson back and stealing his voice in a cloud of swirling despair. "Open the door," Clara cried, instinct taking over. But the shadows didn't care for pleas. They wrapped around the doorframe like creeping ivy, dissolving the world outside into a nightmarish black. Eliza's eyes widened in panicked recognition. She pointed a trembling finger towards the wall. "Mommy, look!" The shapes formed there, twisted and lurching, shadows binding in grotesque mimicry of human forms. Clara's stomach turned, screws of terror tightening around her heart as she gripped Eliza tightly. "They're coming for me," Eliza breathed, wide-eyed. The urgency shot through Clara like a thunderbolt. "No, they're not coming for you," she shouted, though doubt buried itself deeper beneath her skin. What if Nathaniel had summoned them? What if these shadows were feeding on her childish fear? In a moment of wild desperation, she grabbed hold of the candle, the last grasp of light illuminating the room. "We need to fight back," she yelled. The fire flickered, caught in the desperate struggle against the encroaching shadows. The wall's surface roiled, growing darker, sharper, as if the very building was responding to the malevolent pull of Nathaniel's presence. Suddenly, the chanting grew louder, "Find me," now merging with deep, raucous laughter that rattled her bones. It resonated in the air, filling the room with a pulsing energy that quaked through Clara's core. "Mommy, please," Eliza whimpered, her trust resting on Clara like a fragile glass knife. Clara pressed her lips into a thin line, steeling herself against the sound. "I won't let him have you, I promise," she swore, eyes scanning the edges of the room, searching for a place to escape. Then, out of the corner of her eye, she saw an outline in the darkness, a figure moving amidst the shadows. She blinked, half convinced it was the manifestation of her fears. But the outline wasn't just a shadow. It was an unmistakable silhouette. "Nathaniel." Clara, his voice echoed, breaking through the chaos, smooth and sickly sweet like honey laced with poison. "I've missed you." Clara's heart raced and her blood turned to ice. "Stay back." His silhouette moved closer, enveloped in darkness, an embodiment of all her nightmares. Determination surged through her, heavy and solid like a stone. She needed to protect Eliza from him, from whatever spell he cast. "We need to get to the window," she cried, yanking Eliza toward the farthest edge of the room. But as they moved, a chill settled deep in her bones, the shadows whispering promises and secrets. The figure of Nathaniel was no longer an outline, it loomed large now, eyes glinting like shards of broken glass. "Clara, you know I have been waiting for you," instinct screamed at her to flee. But where would they go? The dark promised to swallow them whole. "What do you want from us?" Clara shouted into the darkness, a desperate question she regretted as the laughter erupted again. Taunting and cruel, an idea sparked in her mind. A last-ditch effort. "We won't let you take her. Not today." The shadows twitched, recoiling for a brief second from her defiance. But they quickly surged, not to be ousted easily. "Find me." Clara. Nathaniel's south voice danced tantalizingly close, luring her toward him, drawing her in like a moth to flame. As the shadows wrapped tighter, Clara could feel Eliza's hand slipping from her own. The terror rose in her throat. "Eliza!" she screamed as the darkness surged and swept over them. Suddenly, everything went white, a blinding flash of light, so bright it hurt. Clara held her daughter's hand tightly. A primal scream lodged in her throat, and somewhere deep down, dread turned to an instinct to understand. Would they emerge on the other side? Or would they be forever trapped in Nathaniel's nightmare? The whisper began again, louder, closer. "Find me." As the light began to fade, Clara braced for whatever waited ahead, uncertain but resolute. And then, silence. Absolute silence. Clara's heart raced as she opened her eyes, discovering a shocking truth. They weren't alone. Standing in the shadows, an unrecognizable figure watched, its intentions hidden, its presence unyielding. "What have you done?" it whispered, as darkness began to swirl once again. Clara blinked hard, struggling to comprehend the scene before her. The darkness had shifted, becoming less like a living entity and more like a thick veil, shrouding whatever lurked behind its folds. Eliza was still by her side, clutching her with a grip that felt like it could fracture bone. With the candle barely flickering, its light revealed just enough to confirm that they were in a new, ominous place, a cold, damp room that seemed to breathe with a life of its own. "Mommy, I don't like it here," Eliza whimpered, her voice fragile, a mere echo of the child it once was. Clara's heart dropped, and the walls around them pulsed like a heartbeat, an unsettling rhythm that seemed to mock their fear. The figure in the shadows stirred, its outline sharp against the dark. Clara could see eyes, too many eyes, glinting and watchful. A chill creeped down her spine as she recognized those eyes. Not Nathaniel, but something far worse, something born of the shadows themselves. "Help us," Clara stammered, taking a brave step forward, her candle leading the way like a lighthouse in a storm. "Please." But the figure only laughed, a harsh and grating sound that faded into the walls, as if it was the very breath of despair that sneaked through the cracks. "Help? Oh, sweet child, you'll wish for help when the true game begins." The shadows danced closer, seeping into every crack and crevice. Clara pressed her back against the wall, instinctively shielding Eliza with her body. They were trapped in a room that was tightening around them, a predator preparing to pounce. "What game?" Clara whispered, her voice low and shaky. "What do you want?" The response was a chorus of whispers rising like smoke. "Truth. Dear Clara." The truth now Clara understood. Nathaniel had not just summoned shadows. He had awakened something ancient, something that thrived on the anguish of souls tangled in its web. Each twist and curl of the darkness told a story, a memory of cries and laughter transformed into anguish. As she looked around, she noticed remnants of lives long forgotten. Torn dolls with missing limbs, brittle photographs fading into nothingness, chairs that creaked as if burdened by invisible weight. Time lost all meaning here, stretched like a tattered canvas. "No!" Clara shouted, breaking free from the paralysis of fear. "Eliza is not a pawn for your games." A wicked grin spread across the figure's face, revealing a mouth full of jagged teeth. "Ah, the fierce mother awakens. But can you outwit the shadows? The answer lies in a choice you must make. The sacrifice you refuse." Clara's heart raced. "What sacrifice?" The figure stepped into the dim candlelight, revealing a fleeting glimpse of its true form. A fleeting shadow intertwined with human features, a distortion of reality and horror. It leaned closer, its breath cold against Clara's skin. "One must go. Choose wisely, for your bond will be severed. Only one shall survive." Pressure curled around Clara's throat, choking her. She racked her brain, heart thundering in her ears. How could this be the only way? Fear clawed at her resolve. "I want to choose. You'll have to take us both." The figure froze, its expression morphing into rage. The air around them crackled with tension, and Clara could feel the shadows thrumming all around her. waiting with bated breath. You will make a choice. Only lovers of darkness achieve redemption. The voice reverberated through the empty room, shaking the very foundation beneath them. Eliza grabbed Clara's hand tighter. Mommy, I'm scared. The shadows flared, and with a violent surge, walls began to close in, the room transforming into a maze of shadow. Choose, Clara, choose, the figure screamed, laughter merging with the frantic heartbeat that echoed in Clara's mind. Time slipped away as the desperation twisted inside her. Could she really make a choice? Could she save Eliza? She squeezed her daughter's hand, terror battling hope. But then everything erupted in chaos. The candle flickered, extinguishing, plunging them into the dark abyss that greedily awaited their despair. In that pitch-black void, Clara's voice rose, a fierce declaration against the enveloping darkness. You win. I'll fight. And then, a powerful presence surged around them, a pull that demanded Clara's attention. The shadows seemed to retreat, whispering of a new game, one where desperation met courage. What lay ahead? A potential escape? Or a deeper plunge into Nathaniel's wicked web? Find Me echoed from deep within the darkness, reverberating with menace, as it pulled Clara and Eliza further. The room warped around them, shifting, alive with anticipation. The figure's laughter twisted through the shadows, promising that whatever lay ahead would change everything. Maybe it hissed. Maybe it'll be the end or the beginning. Clara's heart hammered in her chest as the pitch-black void enveloped them. Chilled bolts of fear shot through her limbs, and she felt the suffocating weight of dread press down upon her. Where were the whispers leading them? What new horrors lurked just beyond her sight? Electric sparks crackled in the murky air, and a prickling sensation swept over her skin. She and Eliza were not alone. Something was shifting nearby, a presence that coiled through the space, skimming at the edge of her consciousness, brushing against her thoughts. Mommy? Eliza's voice was a fragile thread, quivering like a candle flame in distressing winds. Clara pulled her daughter closer, feeling the warmth of their connection keep the darkness at bay, if only for a moment. Show, sweetheart. Stay close, Clara whispered urgently, her voice barely more than a breath. She took one step forward, the floor cold and unyielding beneath her feet, the air thick with the taste of decay and despair. In that moment it dawned on Clara what the figure had said. It demanded a choice that could fracture everything they held dear. She fought against the swell of panic. Contemplating those words hung over her like a noose. The ground shifted audibly, unsettling Clara. We need to, but before she could finish the sentence, the shadows lunged. A pulse of terror raced through her, as if the very darkness had teeth. Chilling laughs echoed, reverberating off stone walls that appeared from the void like sentinels of twisted fate. Choose, Clara. A voice hissed unexpectedly from behind, snapping like a whip in the stillness. Who are you? Clara shouted, adrenaline propelling her words like smoke trailing behind a fire. The shadows answered only with oppressive silence, then exploded in howls that filled her ears, drowning out her thoughts. Take her. A voice surged from the depths of her memory. Clara's eyes widened, caught in the swell of past traumas. The nagging memory clawed at her, tugging at the edges of her mind. Nathaniel, she remembered the promises, the lies layered thick like varnish on a crooked frame. But now time showed no mercy. Mommy! Eliza cried. The urgency in her voice pierced through Clara's scattered thoughts. The shadows were circling them, slithering along the ground like snakes. Hold on tight, Eliza! Clara gave a fierce jerk, pulling her daughter behind her as she prepared to leap forward into the fray. She refused to let this darkness consume them. If a choice had to be made, she would do it her way, as if sensing her determination. The shadows recoiled, their laughter transforming into an eerie chorus. Choose, O brave heart. Will you cast away your flesh and bone for the child of light? The phrase rang in Clara's ears, chilling her to the core. What could it mean? Flesh and bone? The life of one for the life of another? Eliza is not a light. She is my heart, Clara screamed, her voice mingling with growing shadows, her determination a flickering flame against the encroaching dark. "Let us find a way, Mommy. We can't stay here." Eliza's plea echoed in the darkness, igniting something deep within Clara, a burning resolve to shield her child at all costs. A gate of glimmering light tore itself open in the distance, revealing a narrow path twisting ahead. Hope ignited, but a voice crawled back into her mind, whispering doubts and fear. "Escape is a mirage, Clara." A fresh wave of shadows surged, crashing against her and trying to pull her away from the glimmering light. Clara felt the tension spike, her instincts urging her to flee toward the glimmer. "Mommy, please." And then, with a gut-wrenching pull, Clara felt time stretch and turn kaleidoscope-like around them. The light drew closer, the darkness warbling in resentment. She felt it, the weight of choice crashing into her like a wave. Was the figure right? Could she sever her bond with Eliza to escape this madness? "No," Clara gasped, shaking her head. "I will never choose." The shadows howled, furious as realities warped around them, maintaining the tension a pointed cliff without resolution. Clara knew they would have to run before the walls swallowed their sanity whole. Yet as they dashed toward the flickering light, a chilling thought dawned. What if the escape led them to an even darker truth? What if the light was a trap? "Find me" echoed again, creeping across the divide with haunting insistence, leaving Clara trembling as she faltered. "Keep running," she told herself, but the flicker of uncertainty clung to her every step, whispering a question. What if the end was just another beginning? With a deafening roar, the shadows swelled, drowning Clara and Eliza in a dark ocean of terror. Unseen hands clawed at Clara's legs, yanking her back, forcing her to stagger. "Mommy!" Eliza's voice rose above the cacophony, a desperate plea slicing through the chaos. The glimmering light ahead flickered, threatening to fade, but Clara fought against the tide, her heart thumping like a war drum. They steadied, breathless and trembling, souls intertwined in a tightening embrace. Clara's mind raced, scrambling for a way through the dark. "We must trust our love," she whispered, clutching Eliza as if the child were a shield, a beacon in this void. "Run!" she yelled, and they bolted toward the flickering path. Each step echoed with a crunching sound, the ground beneath them shifting, becoming alive with writhing shadows. It felt like restless souls were tangled within the very earth. Clara's skin prickled as something icy brushed against her back, a whisper carrying a blend of sorrow and rage. "Don't leave me," Eliza cried, feet pounding against the stone floor, her small body trembling with fear. Clara felt every ounce of her daughter's vulnerability, every thread of innocence woven into her being. With each hurried step, the light ahead pulsed like a heartbeat, dazzling yet tainted, drawing them closer yet screaming for them to turn back. The air thickened, laced with a rancid odor that choked Clara. A dark scent of despair mingled with memories from far away, Nathaniel's familiar cologne, smooth and sweet, the sweet poison of betrayal. "Eliza," Clara urged, glancing back. The shadows stretched, snaking toward them like forgotten nightmares clawing for redemption. "Don't look." Yet Eliza's small hand slipped from Clara's grasp, fear anchoring her in place. "Mommy, I can't leave." Instinct twisted sharply in Clara's chest, her pulse quickening as she saw the fear festering in Eliza's wide eyes. "Eliza, please." She reached out, but the shadows whispered sweet lies, promising her daughter warmth and contentment far from the chilling winds they faced. "Stay with me," Clara shouted as she lunged forward, desperately grasping at thin air. Her eyes narrowed against the darkness, and in that brief moment before she slipped into the depths of despair herself, she saw something, a fleeting image reflected in the light. The figure from before, their features concealed but unmistakably familiar. It was Nathaniel. With a sudden surge of memories, betrayal crashed into her thoughts. Shadows misted over the truth, a disfigured version of the man she once loved. "You were never supposed to be a part of this," she screamed, her voice a constant echo against the malevolent winds. "You made your choice." "Mommy," Eliza wailed, tears streaking her little face, forcing Clara to turn back toward her. The child trembled violently, her eyes shifting nervously as the darkness pressed closer, ready to swallow them whole. "Listen to me, honey." Clara's heart raced as she pulled Eliza back into her arms, feeling the power of their bond surge like a protective force. "The light is just ahead. Together we'll make it." Together, they bolted, hand in hand, the warmth of their love becoming a fortress against the biting cold. In front of them, the light pulsed more aggressively, beckoning them, promising sanctuary but with a sinister undertone that threatened to unravel every spark of hope. But just as they neared the threshold of escape, reality twisted in on itself. The ground opened up in a harsh fissure, pulling Clara and Eliza to the brink. Clara felt her stomach drop, a wave of terror washing over her as the ground trembled under their feet. "Mommy!" Eliza screamed again, sheer panic reflected in her voice. "No!" Clara shouted back, resolute. "I won't let you go." The light flickered wildly, twisting like hands reaching for them, and Clara's heart sank. What if this was all a trap? What if the escape was worse than what lay behind? With a final scream, Clara took a leap of faith into the unknown. The moment she crossed the threshold, time shuddered violently, collapsing all around them as darkness closed in one last time, enveloping them in a swallow of nothingness, then silence. But the question lingered in the air like a bitter ghost. Were they truly free, or had they just entered another nightmare? Darkness weighed heavily around them, a thick fog that seemed to suck the very breath from Clara's lungs. She felt Eliza's small body trembling against her, both comfort and agony as they hovered just on the edge of existence. The silence stretched, a taut string ready to snap. "Can you see anything?" Clara whispered, her voice a thin whisper that barely escaped her lips. Eliza shook her head, her innocence drenched in fear. "Mommy, I'm scared." The candor in the child's voice struck Clara deep, sending chills skittering down her spine. The ground felt uncertain beneath her feet, an insatiable whirlpool that hinted at what lay beneath, eager to pull them under once more. "Stay close to me," she murmured, instinctively tightening her grip. But it was all they had, the tether of each other against the looming abyss. Before Clara could collect her scattered thoughts, shadows began to unfurl around them, coiling like serpents, their movements a resurrection of the dread they had escaped. Clara's heart punched against her ribcage, its frantic rhythm matching the pulsating light that hovered somewhere above, distant yet tantalizingly close. "Eliza, hold my hand tighter," she demanded, panic creeping into her voice. The shadows danced, sometimes intimate, sometimes vicious, and she felt their icy breath whisper past her ear, clawing at her resolve. "We need to find a way out." "Mommy!" Eliza laughed nervously, trying to mask her fear. "It's like a game." Clara forced a smile, even though dread squeezed her throat. Yes, a game, but her attempt fell flat. The darkness laughed back, mocking their fragile hope. The flickering light ahead now flickered more violently, a violent heartbeat calling them ever closer as they moved. The ground beneath them shifted alarmingly. With each step, Clara's fear transformed into desperation. "Do you hear that?" Eliza's voice trembled, eyes wide, scanning the shadows. Clara listened. A distant sound echoed, a growl that reverberated through the silence. It was deep, primal, and hungry. "We need to hurry," she breathed, pulling Eliza along, the urgency tightening her throat. The ground trembled beneath them. Eliza stumbled, almost losing her footing. Clara caught her. "You have to be brave, sweetheart." "Mommy, I can't." Eliza's tear-filled voice broke through the din, the shadows around them quivering as if in response to her despair. "Look," Clara shouted, forcing her voice to remain steady as she pointed toward the flickering light. It flickered again, more desperately this time, almost as if warning them of something horrific lingering in between. "We just need to reach that." But just as they set off again, a chilling screech echoed through the void, a shriek not of a human, but something older, something far more sinister. Eliza froze, eyes wide with terror. What was that? Clara didn't answer. In her mind, A memory played, Nathaniel's voice echoing through their home. A laughter turned sour, a deception crafted in darkness. "Stay close," she urged, forcing herself to walk forward against the storm of shadows that crowded in. The maddening echo of her past hung in the air, growing heavier with each desperate step. But the ground quaked beneath them once more, fissures snaking closer. Clara fought against the encroaching dread, willing herself to believe the light was where salvation lay. But what if Nathaniel was waiting for them? What if the horror of the past was woven into this place, too? Just as they neared the light, it flickered one last time and exploded into a blinding luminescence, enveloping Clara and Eliza in a radiant embrace. They gasped, stunned by the sudden brightness. For a moment, Clara thought they'd truly found freedom. But from within that blinding light, a familiar voice emerged, cold and cruel. "You can't escape what you've fed." And just like that, the light dimmed, leaving Clara and Eliza teetering on the edge of despair once more. An unsettling realization creeping into the recesses of Clara's mind. Had they truly escaped? Or had they simply walked deeper into an even darker territory? As shadows loomed closer, whispering promises of heartbreak, Clara realized with a shudder that the true terror was yet to unfold. Clara's breaths quickened, each inhalation now filled with the fragrance of decay and despair. The shadows slithered closer, merging with the dim light that flickered unsteadily in the void. She felt a pull, a magnetic force drawing her toward the very source of that haunting voice. "Mommy?" Eliza whispered, her small hand trembling in Clara's grip. The innocence in her eyes had been eclipsed by a veil of terror, and Clara realized with anguish that her daughter could feel it too. They were not alone. Suddenly, the ground beneath them groaned, and a fissure opened with a rumbling growl, as if the earth itself were awakening. "We have to go," Clara shouted, tugging Eliza as they sprinted towards the fading light. Panic surged through her as the shadows seemed to stretch, reaching for them, elongating like greedy arms desperate for a grasp. "Mommy, help me!" Eliza's voice pierced through the chaos, and Clara turned just in time to see her daughter trip over the uneven ground. The child's face twisted in fear as she slid toward the gaping darkness. "Hold on." Clara lunged, grabbing Eliza's wrist. But the ground cracked further, sending splinters racing below their feet, and Clara felt a scorching wave of fear grip her heart. "Eliza, please!" The flickering light pulsed like a heartbeat, urging her forward. Clara's muscles screamed in desperation as she yanked, pulling Eliza back just as the shadows began to swirl and writhe, a torrent of darkness responding to their struggle. "I can't do it, Mommy," Eliza cried, her voice high with panic. Yet Clara knew the time for comfort was over. She had to act. "Trust me, Eliza. You're so strong, just hold on tight." With a savage scream against the consuming darkness, Clara surged forward, hoisting her daughter back to safety, slipping and sliding across the damp earth. But even as they stumbled, the shadows recoiled, trying to swallow the light that briefly illuminated their faces. As Eliza clung to her, Clara felt the presence behind them, something cold, something ancient. "Mommy," Eliza whimpered, her innocent voice wrapping around Clara's heart like tendrils of ice. "There's no time," Clara snapped, her heart racing more with each step. The light flickered ominously, illuminating ghostly shapes clawing at the edges of their vision. Almost instinctively, Clara realized they weren't merely figures. They were fragments of memory, the faces of victims lost in the abyss she had tried so desperately to escape. Each step seemed to weigh heavier, an invisible force pushing back against her. Clara gritted her teeth, urging her feet to move faster. "What do we do?" she thought, both desperate and determined, a hideous blend of fear and hope. Then, abruptly, the shadows pulled back, allowing the light to expand for just a second longer. There, Clara saw it, a passage, an opening that flickered with promise. She ran towards it, shoving her way through the darkness, urging Eliza with every ounce of strength she had left. "We have to reach that light." Just as they approached, the shrieks of the long-lost echoes filled the air, anguished wails that penetrated Clara's mind like shards of glass. She faltered for a moment, the sound slicing through her resolve, pulling at her consciousness, dredging up old memories of Nathaniel, accusations, and betrayal. Then Eliza tugged at her sleeve. "Mommy!" The urgency in her voice snapped Clara back. They barreled through the threshold, heart pounding, but darkness clawed at their heels, like a beast finally unleashed. They erupted into a small clearing, the air thick and heavy with dread. Clara gasped, her eyes darting around. Shadows thrashed against the edges like angry waves, but no longer could they pursue. Here, the boundaries shifted, intertwining reality with nightmares. "Where are we?" Eliza's voice quivered, echoing Clara's own uncertainty. "Mommy, it's not safe." A tremor ran through Clara as she scanned their surroundings. In the center, a gilt mirror stood, its frame shrouded in darkness, reflecting not just their forms but an unfurling tapestry of unresolved haunting. "Is this where we—" But before she could finish, the mirror rippled, and Clara saw flashes of grim scenes, each one a window to shattered lives, broken trust, and betrayal, all linked to Nathaniel. "No, this can't be real," she breathed as if responding to her disbelief. The mirror's surface fractured, and the shrieks grew louder, echoing memories that shouldn't be revisited. Eliza tugged at Clara, eyes wide with terror. "Let us go back, Mommy." But Clara was frozen, mesmerized by the truth unfolding in shards. She had never been closer to the core of her haunted past. Perhaps, just perhaps, this was the key. Or was it a doorway to their undoing? "What if we find him?" she murmured, breathless. But answering questions lurked in the depths, and the horrifying reality tightened its grip on her sanity. What awaited them in this realm forged by old sin? Suddenly, the whispering shadows grew frantic. The reflections pulsated with a life of their own, and Clara realized with mounting dread that they were not simply bystanders but destined actors in a tragedy that would ensnare them forever. "Mommy!" Eliza cried again, pulling her back from the dark depths of despair. But before Clara could react, the mirror's surface shattered completely, sending shards flying like jagged thoughts piercing the air around them. And from its depths surged forth a figure cloaked in shadow, eyes glimmering like dying stars. A sinister smile crept across its face as it whispered chillingly, "You've come home at last." What awaited them now? Clara could barely breathe, the weight of approaching darkness pressing in. Would they finally confront what had chained them to this horror? All she knew was that their fate had become intertwined with the shadowed past, and this was only the beginning. The chaos swirled around Clara, shadows gnashing at the edges of her sanity. But this time she felt something shift. Eliza clutched her hand so tightly, a reminder of their bond, a tether pulling them back from total despair. The figure emerging from the mirror was the very personification of all her fears. Nathaniel, shrouded in darkness but with an unmistakable glimmer in his eye, the promise of power that had entrapped them both. "Welcome home," he hissed, voice dripping with false warmth. Clara felt her heart contract. "I've waited for you to confront your fears, to find the truth within yourself," he continued, malice curling like smoke. Gritting her teeth, Clara stepped forward. "You don't own either of us," she declared, resolve surging through her. The shadows quivered at her words, and Nathaniel's grin slipped, showing the cracks in his facade. "Is that so?" he challenged, eyes narrowing. "But you fear the truth, Clara. You left it behind when you turned your back on me." The memories swirled, raw and festering like an open-wound. Moments of laughter turned dark, love twisted into betrayal. "Enough!" Clara yelled, and the sound reverberated through the clearing like thunder. She had come too far to let him replay the past. "You may have summoned this darkness, but you're not controlling it." With a fierce tug, she pulled Eliza behind her, and they stood together, united against the encroaching waves of shadow. The mirror fragments scattered across the ground, light splintering and transforming into specters of memories. Each one a piece of pain, regret, loss. The bond Nathaniel had formed against them was built on their fears. "Mommy, I'm scared." Eliza's voice broke Clara's concentration, and she turned to see her daughter trembling, small and vulnerable. Clara knelt to meet her gaze, her heart aching. "I'm here, baby. We're together. That's what matters." In that moment, Clara felt a surge, as though their connection had ignited a flame against the darkness. As if sensing this shift, Nathaniel's expression contorted into rage. "You think this bond will save you? You are fools." He gestured violently, shadows creeping toward Eliza like asking fingers. "Not today," Clara shouted, and the light of their bond pulsed, pushing back, searing against the darkness. The shadows began to recoil, shrieking, swirling in both agony and fury. "Foolish mother. The linger of despair only strengthens the shadows." Nathaniel spat, but Clara felt an ember within her ignite. She wasn't fighting just for herself anymore. This was for Eliza. "Mommy, it hurts," Eliza cried, the pressure of darkness closing in. Clara felt a knot of desperation tighten within her chest. "Hold on, honey," Clara screamed, shaping her feelings into a wall of light. The figures of lost souls trapped within the mirror shimmered and twisted their anguish, floating around her like leaves caught in a storm. "Listen to me," Clara cried, voice piercing through the chaos. "Let go of the darkness. We're moving on. You don't get to control us anymore." With ferocity, she raised the remnants of light before her, surrounding them both in a protective bubble of warmth. A brilliant flash erupted from Clara's hands. The shadows protested, writhing in agony. Nathaniel's expression shifted from rage to shock as the glow consumed the darkness, and light filled the room, purging it of sorrow. "We reject you," Clara shouted, and with one final surge, they charged through the brightness, clutching each other, heartbeats sinking into one final rhythm that echoed with defiance. The walls around them began to dissolve, shadows screaming as light pierced through the depths of despair. And then, within the roar and chaos, Clara felt something shift fundamentally. The darkness splintered, unraveling, becoming nothing more than fleeting memories. A breathtaking silence settled as they suddenly stumbled into a different reality. Open air, soft grass beneath their feet, the sound of birds chirping as dawn broke through the fog. Stunned, Clara took a moment to breathe. Eliza was safe. The sun washed over them, warming her skin, illuminating the bruises of their experience. "Mommy?" Eliza said softly, the remains of fear still lingering in her wide eyes. Clara knelt, cupping her daughter's cheek. "We're safe, Eliza. It's over now." The memories of Nathaniel's dark grasp faded, replaced with the soft glow of new beginnings as Eliza smiled. Clara felt the last remnants of fear slip away. The shadows would no longer linger. Together, hand in hand, they would forge a new path, living free from the shackles of the past. The bond they had nurtured could not be severed. This was their beginning. But with a heavy heart, Clara also knew that the scars would always remain a reminder of the battle they had fought. The world outside welcomed them anew, promising the chance for healing, hope, and love. Clara took a deep breath, grateful for the second chances woven into their lives. "Come on, my brave girl," she said, casting one last look behind at the dissipating shadows. And then, they stepped forward, leaving the darkness behind, embracing the dawn of everything that lay ahead. Now, as Clara watched the sun rise, a warm glow filled her heart. But wait, you need to subscribe to stay tuned. This is the moment to show your support. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and keep the channels of good stories running. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this conclusion. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this ending. It's time to join the true fans on this journey. Be part of something extraordinary.